Have you ever wondered what exactly behavior means in the context of behavior analysis? Let's dive in to understand this concept better. Behavior, in the broadest sense, refers to any observable and measurable action or activity exhibited by an individual. This includes a sweeping range of actions, from the overt to the covert. Overt behaviors are those which are visible, like physical movements or vocalizations. On the other hand, covert behaviors are those which are internal or private, like thoughts, emotions, and physiological processes. Both types of behaviors are influenced by a variety of factors, from genetics and environment to learning experiences and internal states. Take, for instance, a social setting. Here, behavior can include a multitude of actions, such as talking, listening, smiling, shaking hands, making eye contact, or even simply nodding. Each of these actions is a behavior, an observable and measurable activity. Moving on, we come across the term response. A response is a specific instance of behavior that occurs in reaction to a particular stimulus or situation. It's a measurable unit of behavior that can be analyzed and described in terms of its physical form, frequency, duration, intensity, and other relevant dimensions. Responses can be voluntary or involuntary and are influenced by both internal and external factors. Let's go back to our social setting for an example. A segment of a talking exchange is a response, a moment where someone smiles in reaction to a stimuli, a specific greeting where people shake hands, when someone makes eye contact following their name being called. Each of these is a response, an instance of behavior following a prompt. It's important to note that the terms behavior and response are often used interchangeably, and their precise definitions and usage can vary depending on the context and field of study. So, this is what we mean when we talk about behavior in the field of behavior analysis. Now that we understand behavior, how about we move on to the concept of a response? A response, in simple terms, is a specific instance of behavior that an individual exhibits in reaction to a particular stimulus or situation. It's a measurable unit of behavior that we can observe, analyze, and describe. The response could be anything from a physical movement to a verbal expression, and it's often a reaction to something in the environment. Just like behavior, responses can be influenced by a host of different factors. They can be voluntary, like when you choose to raise your hand in class, or involuntary, like when you jump at a sudden loud noise. Both internal and external factors can influence responses. Internal factors include things like emotions, thoughts, and physiological states, while external factors encompass a range of environmental stimuli. Let's illustrate this with an example. Imagine you're at a social gathering. During a conversation, you hear your name being called. You turn your head towards the source of the sound. That's your response. It's a specific instance of behavior, turning your head, that occurred in reaction to a particular stimulus, which was your name being called. The concept of a response is crucial because it helps us understand how individuals interact with their environment. It provides us with a window into how stimuli in the environment can influence behavior. And it's a key component in the study of learning and behavior change, as it allows us to analyze and describe behavior in a detailed, nuanced way. So, to put it all together, a response is a specific instance of a behavior exhibited in reaction to a particular stimulus. It's a crucial concept in understanding how individuals interact with their environment and how behavior can be influenced and changed. And that's the concept of a response, a specific instance of behavior in reaction to a particular stimulus. Ever heard of the term behavior response? Let's understand what it means. A behavior response is an observable action or reaction that an individual exhibits in response to a specific stimulus or situation. It's like a live, real-time reaction that's triggered by something in the environment. This something can be anything: a sight, a sound, a smell, a touch, or even an internal thought or emotion. Now, these behavior responses can be both voluntary and involuntary. For instance, you may voluntarily choose to raise your hand to answer a question in class. On the other hand, you might involuntarily jump at the sudden sound of a loud noise. Both are behavior responses, but one is a conscious decision while the other is an automatic reaction. What's interesting is that behavior responses can be influenced by both external and internal factors. External factors include the physical environment, social influences, and cultural norms. For example, in a quiet library, you might whisper instead of speaking loudly to respect the silence. That's a behavior response influenced by your environment. On the other hand, internal factors include emotions, thoughts, and physiological states. For instance, if you're feeling anxious, you might fidget or pace around. That's a behavior response influenced by your internal emotional state. Let's consider a familiar example. Imagine you're in a classroom setting. The teacher poses a question to the class. In response, a student raises their hand to answer. This is a behavior response. The stimulus here is the teacher's question, and the response is the student raising their hand. The student didn't just raise their hand out of the blue. It was in response to the teacher's question. In a nutshell, a behavior response is like a mirror reflecting what's happening both inside and outside an individual. It's a specific, observable reaction to a particular stimulus or situation. It helps us understand why people behave the way they do and how their environment and internal states influence their actions. So, a behavior response is a specific, observable reaction to a particular stimulus or situation. Now, let's move on to another interesting concept: response class. Imagine a set of behaviors, all different in their physical form or topography, yet sharing a common purpose or effect on the environment. This is what we call a response class. It's like a family of behaviors, each distinct, yet bound by a common function. The key to understanding response classes lies in the concept of functional equivalence. This simply means that despite their physical differences, all responses within a response class essentially serve the same purpose or produce similar outcomes. Think of it this way: a key opens a lock, right? But it's not the only way. You could also use a lockpick or a master key. Despite the difference in form, each method achieves the same end result: unlocking the door. That's functional equivalence in a nutshell. Now, let's bring this concept to life with an example. Consider the context of communication. Here, a response class could include behaviors such as speaking, writing, using sign language, or using gestures. These behaviors vary widely in their topography. Speaking involves vocal cords, writing involves hand movements, sign language utilizes specific hand shapes and movements, and gestures could involve any part of the body. Yet, despite these physical differences, all these behaviors serve the same purpose: to convey information or express thoughts. Whether you're voicing your opinion in a meeting, jotting down a note, signing a message to a friend, or waving goodbye, you're communicating. These behaviors, though different in form, belong to the same response class because they function to express thoughts or convey information. So, in essence, a response class is like a team, where each player may have a different role, but they all work towards the same goal. They may not look the same or act the same, but they are functionally equivalent. That's what we mean by a response class: a set of behaviors that serve the same purpose or produce similar consequences. Now that we've covered these key concepts, let's summarize what we've learned. We started with behavior, which is any observable and measurable activity exhibited by an individual. This could be anything from talking to nodding, and it can be influenced by a variety of factors, from genetics to environment. Understanding this concept is the foundation for analyzing and interpreting actions. Next, we delved into the idea of response. This is a specific instance of behavior, a reaction to a particular stimulus or situation. It's the smile that follows a compliment, the handshake that comes after an introduction, or the eye contact made when someone calls your name. Recognizing responses allows us to connect behaviors to their triggers. We then explored the concept of behavior response. This concept takes us a step further by linking a specific behavior to a particular stimulus or situation. The classroom example we discussed where a student raises their hand in response to a teacher's question, perfectly illustrates this. By identifying behavior responses, we can better understand the interaction between individuals and their environments. Finally, we discussed response class. This concept groups together behaviors that share similar functions or serve the same purpose. Even though the physical forms of these behaviors, like speaking, writing, or using sign language in the context of communication, might differ, they all aim to convey information or express thoughts. Understanding response classes helps us to see patterns and commonalities in behaviors, which can be incredibly useful in planning interventions in fields like behavioral therapy. In essence, these concepts, behavior response, and response class, provide us with the tools to dissect and interpret human actions. They allow us to understand why people do what they do and how they interact with their environments. They help us make sense of the complex world of human behavior. Remember, understanding these concepts is crucial for anyone interested in behavior analysis, whether you're a student, a professional, or just someone keen on learning about this fascinating field.
If you guys enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and follow us at www.pathforaba.